Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to our City Board of Directors meeting for February 18, 2025. We're grateful for everyone here today as we understand that we will have the incoming weather as to change. Madam Clerk, if you will, please call the roll.
Director Miller, Director Richardson, Director Webb, Director Peck, Director Hines, Director Lewis, Director Compuris, Director Phillips. He's here. Okay, I saw it. Director Adcock, Vice Mayor Wyrick, Mayor Scott.
Present. I'll now have an invocation from Director Andrea Lewis. Amen. Would we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll now have a legislative update from Susan.
All right, the legislative update is making its way around to each of you. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to review some of the ones that are some highlights that are new to the list. And if you want to take a look at some of the ones that are at the bottom, there are some ones that are newly added, and I'll let that come around to each of you. House Bill 1481 was newly added, and that is to create the Anti-ATF Commandeering Act and to prohibit the provision of material aid in support for enforcement of federal firearms laws. And we are particularly concerned about this. The police department is concerned about this for reasons that are obvious, and so we'll be opposed to this. House Bill 1503 to amend the law concerning municipal regulations and to prohibit certain restrictions on the regulation of accessory dwelling units. This is another one that we are also concerned with. House Bill 1510 to repeal the authority for a municipality to exercise territorial jurisdiction over an unincorporated area of a county. Another one that was recently added that we are also concerned with. So these are three new ones that were recently filed that we will be monitoring. And we have some other updates, not a lot of traction on some of the others that we mentioned at the last one. But if you have any questions, just please let me know. I think, Kathy, you
Director
have a question.
Webb.
Thank you, Mayor Scott.
Director Webb.
Susan, I have a question about 1503 and 1510, that we're monitoring those, but are we taking action or just monitoring them?
On 1503, we will be taking action on that one. We are opposed to that one, so we are taking action on, and what was the other one you mentioned?
15P.
That one we are opposed to as well.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Susan. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda.
A resolution to award professional engineering services contract for design street drainage and streetlight projects approved for the John Barrow Road Targeted Community Development Corridor and for other purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into an agreement with Toter LLC in an amount not to exceed $250,000 plus applicable taxes and fees for the purchase of garbage cart containers for solid waste customers located within the city of Little Rock and for other purposes. A resolution to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Resolution Number 16,289, April 16, 2024, to authorize the city manager to enter into a one-year contract extension with Griffin Group LLC in an amount not to exceed $220,000 for maintenance of concrete medians and right-of-way mowing within the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Castillo Concrete Pool and Spa Incorporated, an amount not to exceed $124,548 for the West Windsor at Brookview Drainage Improvement Project and for other purposes. A resolution is set March 4th, 2025 as the date of hearing to amend the 2021 through 2025 Consolidated Plan and 2022 Annual Action Plan and to amend sources of uses of 2022 CDBG Home and HOPWA funds and for other purposes. A resolution to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Resolution Number 16,489, November 4th, 2024, to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Insight Public Sector Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $77,500 plus applicable taxes and fees for a one-year renewal for the Little Rock Police Department, Real-Time Crime Center, and for other purposes. A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a professional services contract with NICE Systems Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $100,000 plus applicable taxes and fees for an initial period of one year for the purchase of NICE Investigate software for the Little Rock Police Department and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with TECO Safety in an amount not to exceed $56,230.82 for the purchase of up to 36 replacement vests for the Little Rock Police Department and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a certain cooperative contracts and for other purposes. A resolution is set March 4th, 2025 as the date for a public hearing on whether to remove commissioners of the Tall Timbers Recreation Improvement District Number 3 from office in the best interest of the district and for other purposes. A resolution to extend the Soma 501 Entertainment District as a temporary entertainment district for the following dates: March 7th, 2025, June 6th, 2025, June 7th, 2025, September 5th, 2025, October 3rd, 2025, and December 5th, 2025, and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize transactions in relation to the William Jefferson Clinton Presidential Park, to authorize various transactions between the Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation and Heifer Project International, as well as between Heifer Project International and the Arkansas Symphony Orchestra Society Incorporated, to authorize finalizations of various documents within relation to lease agreements or property within the Clinton Presidential Park, or both, and for other purposes. A resolution to agree to amend the certain lease date, March 1, 2002, between the Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation and the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, for land located in the William Jefferson Clinton Presidential Park and for other purposes. A resolution to agree to accept title to property from the Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation to state that some of the property shall be placed within the boundaries of the William Jefferson Clinton Presidential Park and for other purposes. A resolution for the city to agree to deed titled property to the Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation to state that some of the property shall be removed from the boundaries of the William Jefferson Clinton Presidential Park and for other purposes. A resolution to agree to the cancellation of subleases between the Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation and Heifer Project International for land located in the William Jefferson Clinton Presidential Park and for other purposes. A resolution to agree to the cancellation of the lease between the City of Little Rock, Arkansas and Heifer Project International and for other purposes. That concludes the consent agenda.
There's a motion and second, and before we take the vote, we'll go to Director Phillips.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add some clarity about, I think it's resolution number 6. It relates to the 1-year renewal of the Insight Public Sector. I know there was a news story, and I received some emails from constituents about this. And if either you or the city manager can add some clarity to these questions. The way I understand it, we're not adding more cameras to our system. This is just to kind of clean up what we did last fall when we agreed to renew the contract. Is that fair?
Yes.
And secondly, as it relates to that, the number, so I received some emails, people say, hey, we're spending $362,000 to buy 30 more cameras. I understand that's not true. the $362,000 is a combination of this 77 plus the money we appropriated last fall when we agreed to this. Is that also correct?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was clear for the citizens. I'm supportive of it, and we voting yes for the consent agenda. But I just wanted to clear that up since there was people had questions about it.
Thank you. Director Compuris.
Mayor, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to just briefly explain the last items on here. There's very rarely a time that I think we have a win-win-win situation by what this is accomplishing. The Heifer International has realized they don't need all the space they need, and they wanted to have their building go to an entity that had a like mind of what they were doing. The Clinton Foundation is in the process of trying to make some, and not trying, going to make some positive steps for downtown Little Rock. And the city wins because of what is happening. So let me just tell you what I think is happening. First of all, we need to thank Sarita Sandar, who is the chairman of Heifer, for her willingness to look into this and try to find a partner. And Hank Kelly and Ed Willis were the two people that helped with this. We need to thank President Clinton and Secretary Clinton because of their continuing interest in downtown Little Rock and their willingness to have the library here, but also to add additions to the library and to make our downtown a more viable area. We need to thank Bruce Lindsay, who was extraordinarily capable and helping direct and help finding a compromise with the Heifer Group on how to get this accomplished. And we need to thank Tom Carpenter, who worked overtime to make sure that the land exchanges were done where we were not taking one piece of park property, 1 acre less of park property than before. So in the end, what's going to happen, in my opinion, is that the Clinton School of Public Service will now have a new campus in part of the Heifer building. This assures Heifer will stay downtown in Little Rock and be a part of our community going forward. It gives the Clinton Foundation and President Clinton and Secretary Clinton the ability to fulfill their plans for the next phase of the library, which will make a significant addition to downtown. It will also give them the opportunity to provide on the east end of this property opportunities for housing and retail. And lastly, what does the city get out of it? The city gets the opportunity now to have the access and the easement for a road that will finish Worldwide Avenue to 2nd Street, which will promote the development of East Little Rock. So we get that out of this deal. Now, we'll have to build the road, but we don't, the $18 million that we were asked to pay 10 years ago for that easement, we're getting this as part of the deal. So to me, I think this is a great win-win-win. Joan and BJ and I were here when we did the library to start with, and I think this will be equally as important to Little Rock in the years to come. So thank you for voting for this.
Director Webb.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. That's exciting. To follow up on what Director Phillips asked, and I too am supportive of the consent agenda, but on behalf of a constituent who couldn't be here today, there was a question if any of those resolutions pertain to the flock audio, and I believe the answer is no, but Mayor just wanted to verify that.
That's our understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Director Hines.
Mayor, my question's on another item. I'll wait till after we get through with the consent agenda.
All right, and before we vote, we have Ms. Gail Long Harper. They're not on? Okay. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, and while we got you, Director Phillips, you wanted to ask a question about item number 18?
Yes, I don't, I'm happy to do it now or after the third reading,
Oh,
whichever.
oh, let's go ahead and do it now if you don't mind.
Okay, absolutely. So for my colleagues, I think everyone's aware of my position on number 18. I sent a few different emails to you guys explaining why I think this is unnecessary, and I want to share those with the public. But before I do that, I want to get to the actual text of this ordinance, number 18, as it relates to the termination of the remote option for us as board members. And the text, I think, brings about some issues that will cause more problems for us in the future than trying to resolve a issue about remote attendance. The text says under section B1, essentially that the board, us, we would have to vote on a resolution making a health determination about one of our colleagues for this to even, for the exception to apply. So theoretically, we would say Director Jane Doe was sick.
Oh, yeah.
We would have to vote to determine that that person was quote unquote sick or sick enough where remote attendance was allowable for that person. I think that's bad. And I think, I know Dr. Computers is actually a doctor, so he's probably the only one who can. Director Hines, are you saying something to me?
No, he and I were conferring. I apologize.
Oh, okay. So I know Director Computers is a medical doctor, and he does have the ability to diagnose folks. I think the other 9 of us, unless I'm missing something about the other 9 of us, we're not doctors. So to have a vote that's going to be literally in the city's history, every resolution we make goes into the city record books where we're on record saying Director Jane Doe or John Doe was sick or unhealthy or sick enough or unhealthy enough where we decided, we as a board decided that that person was in a condition where they could use technology to do the job that the people elected them to do. To me, that's problematic. And I can't support that at all. I mean, I would never vote to determine someone's health condition. And that's what this will require us to do to allow someone to have that option. And then also the text of the ordinance says that wouldn't apply, and the city attorney can correct me if I'm wrong on this, if the exception to the exception is if the director is subject to a recall vote or action of removal. Why? I don't even know why that's being contemplated. Why are we thinking about people being subject to a recall vote in this instance, and when this is all about access and options for technology? The remote option is not mandatory. No one's making anyone use it. And if you look at everyone on the board's attendance record, it's definitely not used that often. I probably use it the most, but I'm there most of the time. So I think this is unnecessary. I think this is a solution in search of a problem that's going to create more problems. And then practically, there's a couple other concerns I have. One, today we had a weather event and we had to move the board meeting from 6 to noon. And city staff decided that it was best to have this meeting available remotely. Luckily, we were able to remove it. I know a couple of my colleagues got there and was concerned about getting there, getting home. But this is a tool to get rid of that concern, and we're taking that tool away. And then practically, from a board perspective, every board meeting where we vote, we suspend the rules. There's something on the item where we usually don't go through 3 readings on the ordinance. And it takes 8 votes to suspend the rules. And if we're not allowed to attend remotely, theoretically, if 3 people were absent, vacation, illness, work, whatever, city business couldn't be conducted the way it's normally conducted. So now we're making the city less efficient because we're taking away a tool of access as it relates to remote capabilities. And then I'll speak about me personally. Last summer, I was on vacation out the country and we were discussing the sales tax, and I logged on remotely so I can do my job. This is not a tool to make you be able to do your job less. This is a tool so I can show the people that voted for me that no matter where I am, if I can be on, I'm gonna do the job. And I literally was out the country at 11 p.m. at night doing the job because I had the technology to do the job. And we're using this to take that technology away. So for the practical reasons, this doesn't help the city move forward efficiently. And then for the text of the ordinance, us voting on someone's health condition seems completely inappropriate. And I'm unqualified. I admit, I'll raise my hand. I'm unqualified to do that. And I don't want to do that. So if we ever get to the point where we have to vote on whether someone's sick enough to attend remotely, I'm abstaining every time because I don't think the people who elected Antoine elected me to vote on whether my colleagues are healthy or not. That's not my job. And I don't think that's any of our job, and we shouldn't be doing it. So for that reason, I'm against this, and I hope my colleagues will reconsider. Those who were supportive of this will reconsider voting on this because this doesn't help us. It just means that when I can't be there, I won't be there at all, and then city business can't go forward in the way that it could if I could attend remotely. So with that, Mayor, I'll in that part, and I may want to rebut if anyone has anything to say in response to what I said.
Director Hines.
Thank you. Tom, the addition, which I'm a little agnostic on B1A, and as I don't have a issue if it's there or not, I'd prefer it not even be there. But I think this has to do with our past practice where we've had 2 occasions in the past where the board has voted in one instance to allow somebody to phone in remotely and one instance where we did not. Is that correct? So this comes from past practice of this board in history?
It is past practice. It's more than 2 situations.
Okay. All right.
And to answer the question about that was raised by Director Phillips about the recall vote, it used to be that the board of directors, if a person missed a certain number of meetings, could remove that person from the board and then appoint somebody to take that person's place. That was changed in 1989, and now it takes a recall vote. That is, a petition's got to be filed, and then you have to have an election within a certain number of days, and then the result of that election decides whether or not the person continues to serve. So the outside of the recall vote was to keep from confusing issues by having the vote of the board to accept or not accept somebody's attendance while the people are supposed to be voting on their petition as to whether they think the person's absence should be a reason for recall.
Thank you. Just my personal comments on here. While I think it was a good tool and we're seeing this in the corporate world, I think it's been very bad for our discourse in this body. It's been very bad for discourse in our planning commission especially. I thought it was kind of interesting that Jamie Dimon, the CEO of Wells Fargo, had some pretty candid comments that got leaked to the press that kind of sums up my feelings exactly on this, that while we're here, we're to be engaged, we're to face the public in person. I think it's been bad for our discourse, as I said. Suspending the rules of this body is a privilege. I think sometimes we may move too hastily. Sometimes it's been used as parliamentary procedure to slow a process down. And I don't think it's too much to ask to have eight members of this body present to suspend the rules and move it if that's gonna be our normal course of business. That's state statute that governs us on that. It's a requirement. So I'm fully supportive of this. I think it will improve our discourse. We can talk about efficiency, but I don't know that it prevents us from being efficient. We all knew when we ran for this position that it required us to be present. Our state legislatures, senators are required to be present. Our Congress is required to be present to take votes. And I don't know why we would give ourselves a card not to be present. So I'll be supportive of this, and I appreciate Tom's guidance on this. Thank you.
Director Peck.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Director Hines, and Director Phillips. Thank you for your comments, and I understand a lot of a lot of the comments that you've made. I still firmly believe that we should not be allowed to attend virtually. I know this is standard now. This is not too established of a practice. This happened during the state of emergency. It was absolutely necessary. We're not in that state of emergency anymore, and I would argue that attending virtually is so very different than attending in person. Whether it's technical difficulties, not being able to hear someone, just the unspoken body language, eye contact, the camaraderie we can build. I mean, it's just a completely different experience when we are all in here together. And as Lance said, the legislature doesn't do this. We all knew what we were signed up for when we ran for office. I just think it is a disservice, especially as elected officials who are paid by taxpayers, to allow the virtual attendance to continue. I know that there are municipalities and legislative bodies all over the country that are examining this now. Are we going to continue? Are we going to allow it? Or are we not? Not too many municipalities in Arkansas have dealt with this yet. I know Rogers passed a pretty stringent ordinance about virtual attendance. I think they allow only 2 annually. I know I read about 10 or 12 days ago that the state of Ohio had said no to virtual attendance if it had to do with elected officials, so legislative bodies, school board, et cetera. It works well and great in the corporate world. I know, Antoine, it makes your life a lot easier. I get it. It saves money. I understand, but I think it is a completely different animal in the corporate world and as this policy-making body for the city. So I strongly support this, obviously, since it's my ordinance. So anyway, I'd love to hear from any other body here about their opinions. I just miss this connection. This is very different. If I can just sit here and have eye contact with Andrea and have a conversation with her, and it's just a completely different animal. And I think our constituents would like for us to be here in person. At least that's what I'm hearing from most people, that we should attend in person. Thank you, Mayor.
Director Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to share that during COVID, this came about, remote attendance and remote working at home. Currently, not only my company, but a lot of other companies are rethinking whether we want to have remote work or not. A lot of us like it, quite frankly, and the production hadn't really slowed down, but in some cases it has with some folks. So this is discussion, and I appreciate Director Peck for bringing this up, because we do need to talk about it now, because the pandemic has lifted. So it's an appropriate conversation to I'm listening to this very intently. Certainly, what Director Phillips said is something I didn't think about. I certainly don't want to vote on someone, whether their health is acceptable to miss a meeting or not. I don't feel comfortable doing that either. Maybe that needs to be taken out of this or reworked somewhere. I really hadn't noticed a big problem with remote attendance or people taking advantage of that. Certainly, we've had a colleague that's had some very, very serious health issues, and that's another thing. I don't think that really applies here to this particular ordinance. But I don't have a real problem with this ordinance, but I do have a problem with that one section. We got to clean that up. I don't want to vote, give my opinion on someone, whether they're sick or not. I'm totally uncomfortable with that. And so I think this needs to be worked on a little bit. And therefore, if what Director Phillips has said is correct, and if I'm hearing that correctly, I can't support voting for this if that is what I'm being asked to do, to vote whether someone's sickness is enough for them to attend remotely or not. That needs to be taken out. I don't have a problem with the rest of it. Thank you, Mayor.
Director Lewis?
Yes, I just want to put on record that we have to be flexible. It's 2025, and we have to move along with the times. And we need to be able to evolve. And I'm speaking of legislator and other areas as well. Because I remember myself back in November, I was at a conference and I was reached by staff asking that I get on so we could conduct the city business. Now, I do agree that this is a very important position for sure, but in regards to our day-to-day lives, roles, and if we want to keep new, fresh people, perspectives, where we're showing this as an attractive position, how are we going to do that if we can't accommodate various people, and especially in their particular roles? Some of us work full-time. Not all of us are retired, and this is our only job. So we have to be in a position to where if the occurrence happens to where we need to get on virtual, we should be able to do that. I do not support this being totally a virtual position. You can just get on as often as you like, because as it's been previously stated, it's not used often. But to remove it totally, I am against that. I do agree that you do have better camaraderie and all of that when you are in personally. I totally agree with that. But when the time comes where you can get on virtual, I think we need to be able to do that. So that's why I don't support this. And you know that. We've already talked about it.
I do.
Director Peck, then Vice Mayor Warwick, then after, was your, did you?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, sorry, thank you, Mayor. Yes, and I do know where you stand and understand that.
Mayor, on a point of order, because Director Peck brought this forward, she's allowed to speak last. So I don't know if there's anybody behind Vice Mayor Warwick, but she does get to close.
Understood.
Director Miller, Virgil, I agree with you. I would be happy to take that health thing. I'm not comfortable. As Antoine said, that's only Dean that could do that, right? And that's really not what it's about. It's about building a better team, better communication. And Andrea, I know what you're saying, and Antoine, I know what you're saying, but it still doesn't change my mind that this is so important as elected officials. I think we know what we signed up for, and I just will not ever stop beating the drum that in-person meetings are far superior than virtual meetings. We can just get more done and have real conversation. So I'm happy with that recommendation. I agree. So if we could remove that.
Is that an amendment?
Yes, sir.
There's a motion for amendment.
Thank you.
There's a motion to strike, actually, I believe it's B.
I don't have it in front of me.
1 and 2. Director Phillips, which one is it?
I'm Sorry,
It
I
was
don't have it in front of me.
It's B1. Well, B1, all of B deals with it. So, I mean, I'll defer to the city attorney on how that impacts the rest of the ordinance, but all of B deals with that.
Mr. Attorney.
So the one time I don't have my ordinance in front of me, I can't answer that question.
But essentially,
If I can get a password, I can answer it.
we're striking essentially for those in the public, and I believe we can all trust our city attorney. We're striking any language related to the city board determining if someone is sick enough to attend the meeting virtually. Can we all agree to that verbally? And we will trust that our city attorney will strike that language, and I won't sign it, assuming this passes. And if it doesn't pass, that's different too. But assuming this passes, I won't sign it until that language is clear. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The language as it relates to, again, to the public who's watching, the language has been struck or from the ordinance as it relates to the city board determining if someone is sick enough to attend the meeting virtually. And that has been stricken from the ordinance,
We also have an
Strike from the ordinance.
emergency clause on that item as well.
as well as the emergency, we'll do another.
You can't pass the emergency clause so you have your language. And it's going to be a little bit more difficult because right now, if you just strike that language, the question becomes, well, under what reasons can they be absent? So I've got to work through that.
So, but
May I?
if what I would suggest, I mean, we are clearly hadn't hit us yet. We are in a winter event. Would the board be okay with, since we understand now that there's some language that has to be striked from it, it has some other implications. Can we defer this to the next city board meeting? Is that okay? I mean, because you got the city attorney who has to make some other.
That's fine with me.
All right.
Is that a motion from Director Peck to defer to our next meeting?
Mayor, if you want to, because you've already voted on it, you can recess this meeting.
We're not trying to bring it back.
We haven't had the third reading either yet, Tom.
Yeah, we haven't had third reading.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
fine.
So actually, we don't even have we have a motion and it passed to do that, actually even without the third reading, which is fine. What we'll do, as I understand it, Director Peck will defer this to the next board meeting. Is that
Second
correct?
her.
Is that what I hear, Director Peck?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Second.
And there's a second. There's a motion and a second, but before we do that, we do have a community member who is online that, before we do that, Miss Allison Guthrie.
Yes, am I recognized to speak?
Yes, you are.
All right, thank you so much, Mayor Scott. Even with the amendment, I'd like to proceed with my testimony. Is that all right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So first and foremost, I would like to thank the board for allowing me to speak. My name is Allison Guthrie. I'm a Little Rock resident and a current graduate student at Illinois State University. Ironically, I would not have otherwise been able to attend this meeting and speak had it not been available online. I'm a strong and long-term advocate of accessibility and inclusion via virtual participation. This is because I personally have a rare genetic connective tissue disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. My disability is dynamic, which means that I can function on some days and on others I cannot or may struggle to. The COVID-19 pandemic brought virtual meetings to the mainstream and changed my life, as well as the lives of many others. For the first time, I was able to become politically and civically engaged in my community. And for the first time, organizations held their meetings in a format that was accessible to me and others with extenuating circumstances. And this gave hope for me, for my future, because it opened up the opportunity to one day hold public office. Virtual attendance is not a cop-out, a special privilege, or an excuse for non-participation. Virtual attendance is accessibility, it is attendance, and it is inclusion. The ubiquitous and continued eradication of measures to allow for virtual participation in multiple spaces leaves me feeling very hopeless about the future of inclusion and accessibility. The COVID-19 pandemic showed us that we can be effective bodies of government and members of the community, despite the modality in which such meetings occur. You discuss being present as a requirement, but it seems to me that I am currently present for this meeting, as is Director Phillips, and see no other reason for this ordinance other than exclusion. I personally find this ordinance to be discriminatory against multiple groups of people, including those with persistent chronic illness, those with compromised immune systems, who may not be eligible to receive vaccinations despite whatever virus may be occurring currently, pregnant and parenting individuals, caregivers, those with lower socioeconomic status, and people with lack of or unreliable transportation, to name a few. Whereas 1 in 4 people in Arkansas have a disability, and 1 in 4 people have a family member with a disability, and whereas the single greatest barrier to community integration and participation for people with disabilities is transportation, the passing of this ordinance signals to the public that in order to run for or serve in an elected public office, one must have an array of privileges, abilities, and resources. People like myself, whose disability is dynamic, unrelenting, and unpredictable, may lose hope of ever running for office should this ordinance pass. Your affinity for connection in meetings does not justify the exclusion of individuals whose only chance at that kind of connection may be through virtual attendance. I urge the board to consider not just what the passing of this ordinance might do to current members, but the message it sends to aspiring members of the community like myself, who may one day want to run for an office that they come to find is inaccessible to them. After all, y'all means all. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you so much, Ms. Guthrie. We'll now have Director Phillips, that still has his hands up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and I do understand and support, I guess, the tabling of this to the next board meeting. I wanted to reiterate something in light of Director Peck's and Director Hines' comments. I think the premise of this ordinance has been misstated. So I agree that it's better to be in person, but that's not what we're doing here. It's not a question about what's better. It's about whether we have the option if in person is not available. So while we're saying, well, it's better to be there in person, I agree. I get that. But if you can't be, then you can't be involved at all. And that's what my concern is. It's not a question of which is better, is whether do you have the options to still engage in the job that we've been elected to do. So I reject the premise that it's better if we're there. Yeah, it is. But what if you can't be there? Then I'm just not present. This is not going to change what I do. If I got to be out of town for work, I'm going to be out of town for work. I'm not going to miss that to be there. It just means that I won't be at the meeting. So it doesn't make me attend more. It just means I will attend less. So I think that premise, it has been misstated. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear to my colleagues and to the public. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you'll read item number 19.
We still need a motion. We had a first and a second, but we didn't motion.
To table? Yeah. There's a motion and a second to table in light of the city attorney who will strike the language for city board members strike the language that allows city board members to determine if someone is ill and or sick enough to attend virtually. So that language will be stricken from the ordinance and taken back up in a cleaner version at the next scheduled city board meeting, March 4th. There has been a motion and a second to table for those particular reasons as stated verbally. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it for the table. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item number 19.
An ordinance to amend Little Rock Ordinance Number 22,368, January 23rd, 2024, to authorize the city manager to amend the service agreement with Motorola Solutions Incorporated and to increase the sole source contract amount to $238,781.88, plus applicable taxes and fees for radio infrastructure equipment utilized by the city's Emergency Communications Department and for other purposes. First reading.
There's a motion. Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance to amend Little Rock ordinance number 22,368, January 23rd, 2024, to authorize the city manager to amend the service agreement with Motorola Solutions Incorporated and increase the sole source contract amount to $238,781.88, plus applicable taxes and fees for radio infrastructure equipment utilized by the city's emergency communications department and for other purposes. Second reading.
There's a motion. Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance to amend Little Rock ordinance number 22,368, January 23rd, 2024, to authorize the city manager to amend the service agreement with Motorola Solutions Incorporated and to increase the sole source contract amount to $238,781.88, plus applicable taxes and fees for radio infrastructure equipment utilized by the city's emergency communications department and for other purposes. Third and final reading.
Members of the board, we've had 3 readings. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item number 20.
Can you open the public hearing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Public hearing is open.
An ordinance authorizing the right-of-way abandonment of South Battery Street located between lots 3 through 6, Block 4, and lots 7 through 10, Block 5, Union Depot Edition, and for other purposes. First reading.
Mayor, before you go to second reading, let me note for the board that all of these that were set for public hearing were set for 6 o'clock. So if they're going to pass, it doesn't make any difference. But if there's one that's going to be more controversial and the person is not here, they were not given noon as the time for the meeting when we set the time. That may or may not be an issue, but we need to be aware of that.
Sure, but and just for the record, we did send out for those and
Right, but the
publicly.
legislation set the time at 6, so
Gotcha.
that's what.
But I guess what I'm sharing is even for item number 22, people have already emailed. We have that covered, but totally understand where you come from. Have we had 3 readings?
No, just the first, but I
First.
need a motion and second to go to second reading.
There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance authorizing the right-of-way abandonment of South Battery Street located between lots 3 through 6, Block 4, and lots 7 through 10, Block 5, Union Depot Edition, and for other purposes. Second reading.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance authorizing the right-of-way abandonment of South Battery Street located between lots 3 through 6, Block 4, and lots 7 through 10, Block 5, Union Depot Edition. Third and final reading.
We've now closed the hearing. Hearing's back open. Is there we don't have anybody to speak for or against. We're now closing the hearing. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please open up the public hearing. If you please read item number 21.
An ordinance authorizing the partial alley right-of-way abandonment located within Block 9, Hollenberg Edition, for the purposes of development of a parking lot for the Lady of Souls Catholic Church and for other purposes. First reading.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those
Aye.
opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance authorizing the partial alley right-of-way abandonment located within Block 9, Hollenberg Edition, for the purposes of development of a parking lot for the Ladies of Souls Catholic Church and for other purposes. Second reading.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those
Aye.
opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance authorizing the partial alley right-of-way abandonment located within Block 9, Hollenberg Edition, for the purpose of development of a parking lot for the Lady of Souls Catholic Church and for other purposes. Third and final reading.
Members of the board, we've had 3 readings. We don't have anyone to speak for or against. I do see Director Webb's hand.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. And I have a question, mostly for constituents who might see this in writing and be very confused by it, because it specifically says for the purposes of development of a parking lot. And if I'm not mistaken, there is a parking.
Just tap it again. We had a tech issue.
Thank you.
Just-
If I'm not mistaken, there is an item that will go.
We'll get it. It's just a tech issue.
I'm telling her,
Yeah.
because she's talking, she's telling her story.
You got it.
If I'm not mistaken, there's an item that will come before the planning commission I think, next month that has to do with the parking lot. And if I were just looking at this, I would be confused since it has that verbiage in the title of it. And could you just explain what this means?
Yes, ma'am, I can clear that up. This abandonment of this right-of-way is related to the parking lot, but it is not necessarily giving approval of the parking lot. The southern end of that right-of-way was abandoned long ago, and a church was put on it, and this is the first step toward that. But if this passes, it still has to be passed, the parking lot still has to be passed by a planning commission, and that, may or may not happen.
Sorry, I was having tech issues.
That's okay, thank you. In your opinion, does passage of it give greater weight to the item that will come before the planning commission?
It opens the door to it.
Director Webb, in light of what we're doing on the other one, if the board wants to approve the abandonment of the right-of-way aspect of it, I can redo the ordinance for the mayor's signature that takes away any reference to a parking lot. Once you abandon this right-of-way, the property will extend to the parties to whom it's given.
I would feel more comfortable with that if we could
That
do
takes a motion of the board to amend it.
So moved.
Yeah.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye,
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it.
thank you.
Madam, open up the hearing.
Got to vote on the
We
ordinance.
still have to vote on.
Thought you were going back. My apologies. We've now closed the hearing. I still do not have those for or against on 21. We do have what we just recently took the motion on. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Madam, we now open up the hearing for item number 22. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the ordinance.
An ordinance authorizing an alley and unnamed street right-of-way abandonment located within Block 8, Josephine Pankey, 3rd edition, in the unnamed street south of Block 8, first reading.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance authorizing an alley and unnamed street right-of-way abandonment located within Block 8, Josephine Pankey, 3rd edition, in the unnamed street south of Block 8, second reading.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance authorizing an alley and unnamed street right-of-way abandonment located within Block 8, Josephine Pankey, 3rd edition, in the unnamed street south of Block 8, third and final reading.
We've had 3 readings. We do have a resident, Mr. Kendall Grooms.
Hey, good afternoon, Mayor. I'm actually not a resident. I am counsel for the applicant, Anchor Realty Investments, and I was just here to
Well, we hope we can
observe and
figure out a
make
way
sure
to get you to move to Little Rock.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, if you're not a resident, we want to make certain.
All right.
Where do you live?
But other than, I live in Maumelle right now, but I practice law, and my law firm is in Little Rock.
It's about 3 miles away.
Yeah.
I'm just joking with you.
No, it's in. No, my firm's in Little Rock. It actually got hit by the tornado back March 31, so we appreciate everything the city did for that, and we're back up and running now.
And we're sorry to hear that in prayer for you. Thank you for sharing that too.
But otherwise, I'm counsel. I'm their attorney. I was just here to answer questions and observe. So I don't have any comment. Obviously, I would be in favor.
Awesome.
And Director Phillips, I hope you're doing well. It's been a while since we talked. Hope you're doing well.
You guys must have went against each other, I guess.
No, good to see you, Mr. Grooms.
No.
Mr. Grooms and I were in law school together.
Gotcha.
We
All
were.
right. We'll now close the hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Mayor,
Yeah.
I do have a question for Director Jordan before we vote.
Oh, I didn't see your hand. I apologize.
Yeah, just real quick. Director Jordan, if I'm reading the board communication correctly, well, I shouldn't ask it that way. Let me just ask it this way. Who all was notified of the hearing, just so we can have that in the record in case any residents reach out to me?
The people that were notified for right-of-way abandonments are just adjacent property owners, and I believe only one property owner owns this entire block.
Got it. Just wanted to have clarity on that. Thank you, Director Jordan.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye. All those
Aye.
opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. We'll now go to citizens' communication. Mr. Richard Sparrow. Hi, Mr. Sparrow, we'll see you. If you'll take yourself off mute, or we will. Just give us 1 second.
Just give us one moment.
Oh, we got you. Oh, is that us? Is that us? Oh, that was him.
Come here.
Oh, we can hear you, Mr. Sparrow.
Oh, he can hear me. Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Sparrow, hold on 1 second. Mr. Sparrow, if you would unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, and Gillespie, if you may be in the same room, if you will unmute yourself, if you'll mute yourself, so Mr. Yes. Now, Mr. Sparrow, you unmute, since I understand you guys in the same room.
How's that? You got me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Richard Sparrow. I live in Wildwood Place subdivision out Denny Road. And I'm going to kind of do a little introduction here. This is not a new issue for the board and yourself. We just wanted to keep it on the front burner. Hopefully we can get something done in the next few months. And what we're talking about is the intersection of Denny and Canis Road. I've been a homeowner here. I'm in the 6th year now. And we've been promised for 6 years that this would be addressed. But it hasn't. First it was a roundabout, then it was a cut through, then it was a roundabout again. Roundabout's the answer. And we've heard all the issues between the city and the county and what's going on, but we just like to have a resolution to this problem. And there's 4 homeowners plus myself here today tuned in for this. And they'd all like to say a few words. And who's next on your list there?
Mr. Gillespie, we don't normally answer questions during citizens communication. We just listen in. So that's just FYI. That's has always been the case. But keep going. If there's something I need to answer, I'll reach out to you if you share your number. Mr. Sparrow, not Mr. Gillespie. I apologize. Mr. Sparrow?
Mayor, if I can chime in and try to add some clarity, I think Mr. Sparrow was saying that he had multiple residents with him in the same building or house, wherever they are, and he wanted to know who was up next on the citizen communication list to speak next. He was just giving an introduction of all the people in the room with him.
Gotcha. And that's Mr. Gillespie, if he wants to go after Mr. Sparrow, and then after that. And then.
Okay. You got Kevin Gillespie here, also in Wildwood subdivision. And really, we're talking about a roundabout that's been planned since, 2020? In fact, we're wondering why the binding resolution that was signed October 2020 has not moved forward. It's, if I remember or understand, that there was a 1.4, almost 1.5 million given for this roundabout, and we're still yet to see it. I've been here in the neighborhood 3 years, and we still have not moved forward on getting that fixed. And the reason why we bring it up is the traffic flow is so bad coming through the Canis, Denny corridor. You have so many people, school, elementary school here. We're expanding the neighborhoods. People are increasing. And if you've ever driven from the Denny to the Canis location, you'll see how dangerous that intersection is. There are accidents all the time, and really it's for safety, both for school-age kids and for seniors. It's, we just wonder where the roundabout is. We want to just get the traffic flow to be safe and consistent with what the binding resolution was on 2020 in October. And I do want to say, Director Peck, thank you for helping get this process moving back several months ago. And we're just wondering where we are on it. And what I would like to do, I do have Charles right next to me, so he can speak on my
He's
computer.
next. Well, Mr. Gillespie, I'll go to the next person, Mr. Charles West, and after Mr. Charles West, Mr. Larry Gardner, and Miss Rachel Golden, all in that order. And you all just kind of, as you all get finished, just keep transitioning.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This is Charles West. I live at 620 Wild Creek Circle in Wildwood Place subdivision. My wife and I moved here October of 2020. And one of the concerns we had was this intersection that we're talking about, Denny Road and Canis. It's a dangerous intersection. And we were told at that time that this was, the plan had already been approved and it would be fixed. So we went ahead and moved here 4 years ago plus, and nothing has been done. In fact, it's gotten worse. Potlatch, Deltec developed Fletcher Valley down on Canis Road, and they added many more houses. So the traffic has gotten much worse there. It's extremely dangerous. There's an elementary school down on Denny Road, Chenal Elementary. The bus drivers have a terrible time negotiating the intersection. Nothing's been done. A group from our neighborhood met with the county judge back last July. We were told that the county would fix this intersection. They had the money. They had the plan that they would reconfigure the intersection so Denny Road would meet with Stewart Road. They would put a traffic light there. That was last July. Now we understand that has been abandoned, and we think this is unconscionable. We want it fixed, and we know we've met, and we've heard all we have enough information about the intersection and who's got the money and who doesn't, and who's got a plan. We just want something done. We want someone to lead this, to be a leader, step forward, and get it done. Thank you.
Next.
This is Larry Gardner. I've also lived out here about 5 years, and our POA had put together a letter to you, sir, and to some other distinguished individuals. But one thing to add is the fact that since 2014, there's been about 400 homes built out here on Denny Road and also on Canis Road. There's 340 homes either now underway or planned for Fletcher Ridge and Kinsley Ridge. But net, so far since 2014, about 40% increase in traffic. And of course, now with the other 400 homes or 350, 400 homes, it's just going to get continually worse. So just emphasizing the need for something to be done. And I know there's been a proposal that no further development be done until this roundabout's put in place. And we just want to support that just to get this thing and get it done. And we know that also this thing has been planned. It's been at least partially paid for. It's been designed. It's just need to move. I know Director Hines has done a lot of great work on this, and we support his efforts. So thank you very much for your time.
Ms. Golden.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm not in the same place as my fellow neighbors. So, hey, good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor Scott and the Board of Directors. I don't want to be redundant for the sake of your time. My neighbors have well stated what we are concerned about. But, you know, this resolution was signed by 2020 by Judge Hyde. And at this point, we just are requesting that the residents we're still in support of this resolution to materialize. It's for the safety of our friends and our families. I'm also speaking on behalf of the Wildwood Place POA as a board member and the Wildwood Park for the Arts as a board member. And I'm happy to give my contact information if that's helpful to anyone as this situation develops, because we have full confidence that you're going to help us move forward on this dangerous intersection.
All right, thank you all. Just want to see a few different things. Thank you all for your citizens' communication. I see a few hands up. Director Hines.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate all the folks from Wildwood getting on today. They had planned to be here in person, but when we moved the meeting up, they decided to call in since we offered that. And a good illustration of why we need to be here in person. It was a little clunky. This all goes back to the county judge, the city, and Deltic Potlatch Corporation getting together back in 2019 to address the future expansion going on out Canis and Denny Road. The original agreement that was, I guess you could call it a gentleman's agreement, was that the county and Potlatch Deltic would address the reorientation of Denny Road and Stewart Road to kind of take the weird angle that Denny now meets Canis with out and create a roundabout. The county judge passed a resolution in 2020, also went to Metro Plan and got a $1.4 million grant. It seems to me, and I can say this because I'm another elected official, that the county judge appears not to have drawn an opponent this last election cycle and decided that he didn't want to spend any more money because it was required to meet state highway standards, and the project became about twice as expensive as he thought he should spend the money for. And we're talking about a county judge that's got probably close to $28 or $29 million in his road and bridge fund reserves. He's elected to spend $10 to $12 million on bike trails, but he can't seem to find $1.4 million to spend towards creating a roundabout that not only City of Little Rock residents would use, but also county residents, and the proliferation of the growth in the county, in western Pulaski County, as there's been many, many homes built out there. The city's agreement was that we would work on the widening of Canis Road where it goes out to the new roundabout. I still stand ready to take on that challenge and getting it done. We have a developer that's developing a good section of that right now. We're in an interesting situation with that whole deal. We've got county city property that jogs back and forth. The roundabout, though, will sit in solely county property, not contiguous with any of our boundaries. That's why we told him we would work on Canis Road where we have contiguous boundaries with the city and the county. For some reason, and it baffles me, the county judge has decided that he can't spare any of his road and bridge fund to take care of a life safety issue. He would rather spend it on bike trails and stuff when we've got several hundred residents of the county and the city, and our city residents, our county residents, and they pay taxes. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Tom, I asked you a couple weeks ago for a right-of-way dedication waiver for Deltic Potlatch on their right-of-way dedication they are willing to give to the project, and I expect to see that post-haste. There's going forward, we're going to take the county judge's excuses. He tried to bring us into this because it was held up at a staff level, unbeknownst to me. This is a decision for this board to make on a policy, and I want that resolution in front of us as soon as possible. Per our rules, I'll wait 2 weeks, whatever it is, but I asked for it 2 weeks ago and I still haven't seen it, so I expect to see that Appreciate everyone's comments. Mayor, I have a couple other items I'd like to address. Another issue that's been held up at staff level on another agreement, there's a franchise agreement for Potlatch Deltic that evidently has been held up where they want to take over maintenance of medians and right-of-way and take it off the city's hands. I'd also like that agreement brought to us. This is not something that needs to be held up at the staff level. Tom, the other
What is that
question-
pertaining to, so we know?
That's a franchise agreement between Potlatch Deltic and the city to maintain portions of the right-of-way and medians along Chenal Valley Drive, correct?
Manish, if you'll. Is this the,
Yes, sir.
let's update the city board about this.
Sure. It's on the board resolution that passed today to extend a one-year contract. Let me see. It was for median maintenance and right-of-way maintenance.
So it's already
for
been
1 year.
passed?
It's been passed, and
Which item
those
was it?
portions. Let me see. Was it not? Was it item number 3?
The 220,000 for concrete medians and right-of-way?
Yes.
That is not what I'm asking about.
Okay.
What are you, which one are you asking about?
This is something that's been held up in the staff level and
Can you-
maybe even the city attorney's office.
Can you speak to it so we know what you're talking
It is a franchise agreement between Potlatch Delta Corporation and the city of Little Rock to maintain medians and right-of-way along Chenal Valley Drive.
Okay. Is this pertaining to our staff in Public Works?
I don't know where the holdup is. I heard it was in the city attorney's office, but then I heard
I
Public
don't
Works had
recall
some
seeing
objections.
anything.
We don't know of anything. Mr. Attorney, do you know what he's referencing?
I know about the franchise agreement. I don't know what the holdup is, but I'm certainly going to find out.
And what would the franchise, why would be just, if you can speak to it and specifically, so we know what you're talking about.
Potlatch Delta Corporation would like to take over maintenance of right-of-way and medians along Chenal Valley Drive where the city does not have to maintain them. They maintain 99% of the medians and right-of-ways in Chenal Valley. And they would like this portion of Chenal Valley Drive.
Is this the light pole? Is that what you're talking about?
It is not the light pole. It is
No, Mayor, so-
maintenance of the city right-of-way and medians along Chenal Valley Drive. We
Right.
have to do a franchise agreement.
So have you all done that?
No, sir. So what we have is we have a contractor who does maintenance on the medians as well as right-of-ways. So the median maintenance contractor basically comes in and mows and weed eats the medians, and there's multiple areas around the city that we do that. The Chenal area is also included in there. And what Director Hines is saying is they would rather do it themselves, as in Potlatch Deltic, rather than the city.
I think the problem is that there's been some developments out there that have not been consistent with the Chenal standards, and then there's a question as to whether the Chenal standards apply. And I think what the franchise does is says, hey, y'all are in charge of this, you have the standards, so that the city can't just say, go build a crosswalk.
Yeah, I guess what I want to know is, because since Director Hines brought an issue up that no one really knows what he's talking about, is this something that your office has been working on? Because it doesn't sound like the Public Works has been working. I just want to get to the solution.
Right, we are working on it.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have one other item, Mayor. Question for Tom.
Yes, Director Hines.
Tom, what is the procedure if I want to bring the spot shotter contract back up and add money to it to increase the coverage, as so many of our neighborhoods have asked for?
Generally, Director Hines, you can't reconsider it because that has to be done within the same meeting, and that's passed. The contract has expired. One thing we need to know if it's to come back up is the shot spotter willing to do the contract, and if so, for what amount? And we would need to determine that if they are willing to do it, and then for the same amount, y'all have used the motion to expunge a vote in the past, which if you give notice of it at least 2 weeks before, then it takes a majority vote. If you don't, it takes a supermajority vote.
I would like to give notice. I'd like to expunge that vote and bring it back up for a vote in 2 weeks.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
you can. I also want to just share with members of the board, we've already passed a budget, and the budget accounts for the $188,000. It does not account for anything else. And so we would have to figure that, A, we got to figure out if ShotSpotter wants to do that. And then B, I'm going to make sure you all have to vote on this. Just a few different things just for board members are aware. Number one, ShotSpotter has to agree that they want to do the process, but city attorney, we still have to go back and do the procurement process as well. So that starts over. So I just want to make sure, just because a vote is expunged 2 weeks from now, if it is expunged from 2 weeks from now, the contracting process starts over. Then it has to go back through staff and things of that nature. That's, again, assuming, as the city attorney shared, that they agree to, they want to do it. Staff, and so the budget accounts for, budget accounts for the $188,000 from that standpoint. And so if there is a desire to expand, one, I would encourage that the chief health needs to make that decision to bring before you, just from that process. And then two, we just got to look at it from a budgetary concerns as well, and how that may impact other things that you guys share that you want within the budget. So I just want to be very clear from that standpoint.
Director, Mayor Scott, one thing though is this was a sole source contract and it would still be sole source. So in terms of procurement, it's going to take the extraordinary vote of the board to do it as a sole source, but it doesn't make sense to go out and bid something.
No, I'm not talking about going out to bid. I'm just the traditional makeup of going back, because you still have to go talk to ShotSpotter, because the contract has now been voided. So you're starting that process. So I'm assuming they're going to have to come talk to you. I just want to be very clear. It's not a easy thing to do. It's very doable, number one, but lawyers have to get back involved. So it'll be quite some time. And then number two, I would think there needs to be two votes. One, if there's a need to bring the sole source contract back, that can be done. We can start that process at the $188,000. If there's a desire to increase that amount, again, that extends even more, because now ShotSpotter has to survey and look at different things to add to that. So if the simple matter is from the city board is to bring ShotSpotter back, I would encourage Director Hines, the simple thing to do is just to expunge the vote and to redo the vote. Does everybody understand that process?
Yes. First, we got to expunge the vote, so I'm fully aware of that.
Yeah. I just want to, Director Hines, I just want to keep everybody on track. That's up to the city attorney. He's opined that that's a sole source contract. So if there is another vendor, it couldn't be a sole source, I don't think.
Mayor, there is another vendor.
So let me help you out, because that may create a whole lot of other questions from folks who were here. I'm trying to help out the city board. I think this is one of my roles. And if it's as I understand a sole source contract, that means that's the only person who can provide that service.
No, it's whether that it would be impractical and unfeasible to bid. And what I was going to say is that what's not clear, what I have determined is that in many places, ShotSpotter just leaves the stuff there and disconnects it, essentially. And so if the stuff is still there, they would have an advantage for the city that may, if the city wants to do this, go to sole source. If the city wants to totally redo it, then it would be a bid, and it would involve all that goes into the bid of being able to make the determination. And
so here's what I would do. I think this makes it easy. If there's a will to get it passed, things of that nature, there will be a vote to expunge in 2 weeks. Then I would encourage, what I would then do is either encourage Director Hines or talk with Chief Hilton, and the team would then bring back what they've already brought before. And then if it passes, it passes. That way, the budget isn't challenged. Because if there's and I do think if there's a need or a desire to expand other areas, that costs money. And so we need to have a conversation about that. You got to get the chief and the assistant chiefs where they think is where it is. It's not a flip of the switch. I know many times we operate with magic and it's not. And so I want to make certain that we kind of keep things on roll, because that clearly is a policy decision and that's wants to happen, but it doesn't happen. So I think, again, if you want to keep the sole source contract in place with Shot Spotter, which I think what I'm hearing from Director Hines, expunge the vote, and then Chief Hilton and/or I'll talk with Chief Hilton and/or Director Hines. It'll get back on the agenda 2 weeks from that expunged vote, and things are back in place, if that's the desire of the board. I'm just setting it. Does everybody understand that process? Everybody understand? All right.
Mayor, I have a first and a second for the motion, but we didn't vote on the motion
For,
in 2 weeks.
does that take place in this particular
It
meeting?
doesn't take place
Okay,
tonight.
and
It
then-
takes
Yeah, I didn't
place
think it did.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I didn't think it did. All right. Director Phillips?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I guess two things. One related to this conversation that Director Hines just brought up. If I understand the Roberts rules correctly, a couple things, and I shouldn't say if I understand it correctly. I'll just ask our parliamentarian. One is my understanding that a motion to expunge can be brought up at any time. Is that correct, Tom?
At any time before the parties have changed their situations.
Okay,
So, for example, like if it was a zoning matter that was defeated, or a zoning matter that passed and somebody put their financing in place, we couldn't go back and expunge it once they had done that because they had changed their position.
So is it your opinion that no position has been changed as it relates to Shot Spotter?
No, what I said is that I have been told and I have read that ShotSpotter leaves the equipment in place. I mean, I'm so assuming that is the case and that it's really a matter of, do they make it work again?
Shot Spotter has not
then it could
taken
be
up the
expunged.
equipment at this time.
Okay.
So, and that's my understanding as well. Not just for us to be parliamentarily sound, Tom, if you would just, before we vote to expunge, if you can verify that and confirm that no adverse position has been taken where a motion to expunge is still proper, I think that'd be good for us to do before we vote on this.
I agree.
Secondly, I think we've done this before, Tom, and I thought the rule was that the motion has to be made by someone who voted on the prevailing side.
No, that's a reconsideration motion, and it has
Oh,
to
that's
be
a
somebody on the prevailing side, and also it has to be done at the same meeting, which we have
Okay.
interpreted to mean a recessed meeting, but we didn't recess, we just adjourned.
Okay, so that's just, in motion for reconsideration, it has to be prevailing side. Motion for expungement, it could be any board member?
Yes.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that. And then, Mayor, my other point, just whenever we're done, I don't know if my colleagues have any other comments. Can you provide the public with an update for like Public Works as we get ready for this sleet, ice, snow mixture?
Yes. Director Peck?
Thank you. And I guess I was slow to push my button, and since Lance has already brought this up, but I just wanted to go on record that I was not able to be here on Tuesday. I wish I would have. I listened to it. I had an excuse from my doctor. But I have been getting lots of information. I think we all got an email from Jay Cheshire and the Little Rock Regional Chamber about support for the LRPD, specifically Shot Spotter and the license plate reader, some things that we did pass today. I really regret not being here last week because I would have voted for it and we wouldn't be having this conversation. Lance said it the best. who am I to argue if the LRPD says this is a tool we need in our tool chest, then I'm not going to argue with that. Getting lots of emails from people, business leaders primarily, very upset about the vote, and I hope it comes back. I will be fully supportive of it. And the only other thing, very quickly, is, Mayor, we had talked about a policy discussion early on in the year about the fire stations. And again, thank you to Chief Hubbard for putting together those very comprehensive and thorough binders on the firehouses. I know BJ's been to a few, I've been to a few, and some of my colleagues have asked when we might schedule that policy discussion about the fire stations.
As soon as we can. We got many of your colleagues also asked for other policy discussions, and so we kind of have an order of how I select them. They'll be up as soon as possible, just like we had the Progressive League last week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Director Compuris?
Mine's real easy. People comment that when we vote, they can't hear how we're voting. Is there any way that y'all can turn on all the mics when we vote, when people can actually hear? And
We'll look through that, but
we vote.
people want to know how you vote. I mean, generally you do a roll call. I mean,
No, I know, but when we vote just verbally, people can't hear who's done what. And I'm just.
I guess we can figure something out, but I want to be very clear. If people want to know how you voted, the way to do that is the roll call. I mean, normally it's just that, hey, the city board voted.
And most people think that's just great, but they just want to hear, Joan's lyrical voice saying what she's doing.
We'll see. All right. Yes, members of the city board, we're grateful for men and women of the Little Rock City Public Works Department, as well as LRPD and LRFD, Homeless Services, Parks and Recreation, our code enforcement, housing, neighborhood programs, who are all going to be 911, emergency communications, all essential personnel that are ready and prepared for the winter weather. Specifically, a couple things that the city is doing. One, the city has mobilized our temporary cold weather emergency shelter at the Dunbar Community Center. It will open up at 3 o'clock and will be a 24-hour service until further notice. Secondly, we have about 17 trucks that are fitted with salt spreaders and snow plows to be prepared for the sleet and the snow. Our team has been out treating the roads, the main routes that we do, which is online. The salt spreader routes, I believe, is about 9 kind of primary routes that we utilize here in the city, that we start there first, and then once we get through the 9 primary routes, we then go to individual side roads. From that standpoint, we got about 60 dedicated public works crew members who are working 12-hour shifts, 30 on the first 12 hours, and 30 on the next 12 hours to do a whole 24-hour operation as relates to the winter weather. All right. Any more questions or concern? The motion to adjourn. There's a motion, a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.